appreciate that we are holding this hearing within the traditional territories of the Tishat and Huichesed First Nations. My name is Susan Roth. I'm the Director for Beaver Creek Electoral Area. I'd like to introduce you to ACRD planning staff. That's Mike Erg. He's General Manager of Planning and Development. Alex Dyer, Planning Manager. Amy Anaka, Planner, and Kathy MacArthur, Planning Assistant. She's on up here. So this hearing is being held in the ACRD boardroom and electronically by Zoom. It's being recorded and is live streaming on the ACRD website. Would staff please provide direction and instruction on how to participate in this hearing?
Yes, happy to. Thank you. We do have a mix of participants, both here in the room and online as well. So we thank you for participating and for taking the time to be here with us tonight. If you are watching the live stream on the website right now and wish to join the meeting, the details on how to do so are available on the Zoom meeting invite document that's found on the public hearing page. We want to just start by highlighting some of the tools in Zoom that will help us participate and keep the meeting moving along smoothly. So if you are participating online, and I see we have one member online right now, you have the option to turn on or off your video or mute and unmute your audio. So other meeting participants can see you and hear you. We ask that you keep your audio muted unless you are going to speak, just to reduce the background noise. And there will be an opportunity to speak after staff introduce the OCP amendment bylaw and summarize the agency and First Nation referrals. For those of you participating here in the boardroom tonight, we ask that you use the microphone system that you have in front of you before speaking by pressing the little silver button, and the camera will focus on you and you'll be able to speak. We ask that you use the microphones so that those online can hear as well. So when the chair calls upon members of the public to comment on the bylaw, we ask that you either put your hand up or call out that you'd like to speak. Once you've been recognized by Chair Roth, we ask that you state your name and address, followed by your comments or questions. If you are online and you wish to unmute yourself, you will unmute yourself. And if you're in person again in the boardroom, just press the button on the microphone if you're ready to speak. And then last thing on Zoom, I just want to highlight that there is a chat feature accessed from the controls on your screen. If you'd like to make a comment or ask a question at any time, all comments will be addressed by staff during the public hearing. So feel free to add anything that you would like to have considered as we move along. These comments will be brought forward by staff when the chair asks for public comment. So I encourage you to do so. And again, there is a final opportunity to be heard at the end of the public hearing to ask any final questions and make any final comments you have on the OCP amendment bylaw. And I think I'll pass it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Okay, the subject of this hearing is bylaw P1444. This bylaw is an official community plan amendment to the existing Beaver Creek official community plan bylaw P1291. If you have questions or comments about any other unrelated topic, I ask that you contact regional district staff after this hearing has been terminated. Would staff now read out the public notice or the notice of public hearing?
Thank you, Director Roth. I will now read out the notice. Public hearing for residents and property owners in Electoral Area E, Beaver Creek, has been scheduled to consider bylaw P1444. Hearing details Tuesday, February 28, 2023 at 7 p.m. Public hearing for bylaw P1444, Beaver Creek Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw, electronic call-in or in-person attendance at the ACRD office, 3008 Fifth Avenue, Port Alberni, BC. A public hearing for residents and property owners within Electoral Area E, Beaver Creek, will be held to consider bylaw P1444. This bylaw is an official community plan amendment to the existing Beaver Creek OCP bylaw P1291. As part of the zoning bylaw review project, amendments are being considered to the 6 ACRD electoral area OCPs to align OCP policies and objectives with the proposed updated zoning bylaw. Available online at www.acrd.bc.ca/ZB review. The public hearing will be held by the Director for Electoral Area E, the alternate director or the chairperson of the regional district. The board resolution making this delegation, bylaw P1444, and all relevant background documents are available for review in the ACRD office or online at www.acrd.bc.ca/events/28-2-2023. This public hearing will be recorded and live streamed on the ACRD website. Planning staff are available to answer questions in person, through email, or by phone during regular office hours, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., Monday through Friday, from February 15th to February 28th, 2023, excluding statutory holidays. Anyone who feels their interest in property will be affected by the proposed bylaw will be afforded a reasonable opportunity to be heard. If you wish to participate in the public hearing in person, electronically, or by phone, full instructions to do so are available online at www.acrd.bc.ca/events/28-2-2023, or can be provided by contacting planning staff by email at planning@acrd.bc.ca or by phone at 250-720-2700. The public hearing will be conducted from the ACRD office located at 3008 Fifth Avenue, Port Alberni. Written correspondence can be submitted to the ACRD by one of the following methods: hard copy delivered to the ACRD office in person or by mail, email sent to planning@acrd.bc.ca, and fax sent to 250-723-1327. Email or fax correspondence will only be considered received if a receipt confirmation is provided by ACRD staff. Written submissions provided in advance of the public hearing must be received by the ACRD no earlier than 8 a.m. on February 15th and no later than 4 p.m. on February 28th, 2023, to ensure their inclusion in the public record. Correspondence submitted ahead of the public hearing outside of the parameters will not be included. Regional District of Alberni Clayquot, Planning Department, again, 3008 Fifth Avenue, Port Alberni, 250-720-2700, and email planning@acrd.bc.ca.
Thank you, Amy. Okay, the purpose of a public hearing is to receive input, written and verbal, from any person who believes that their interest in property is affected by the bylaw. The Board of Directors will receive full minutes of this hearing before voting on the bylaw. Staff are taking minutes that summarize the issues raised. Please speak clearly to ensure accuracy. Would staff please introduce the proposal?
Yes, happy to. Back to me now. So bylaw P1444 is an official community plan amendment to the existing Beaver Creek official community plan bylaw. P1291 official community plan is is shortened by OCP, so you'll hear me use the term OCP quite a bit. The OCP bylaw P1291 was originally adopted in 2013. The OCP amendment bylaw that we have for you tonight generally includes updates to align OCP policies with objectives with the draft updated zoning bylaw. As part of the zoning bylaw review project, all 6 of the electoral area OCPs in Banfield, Long Beach, and the Alberta Valley are being amended to align policies with the draft zoning bylaw. I will start off by highlighting it is important to note that the comprehensive rewrite of the ACRD zoning bylaw is not being considered as part of this public hearing specifically, and that the zoning bylaw remains in draft form. Any changes to the updated zoning bylaw can still be considered, and staff certainly encourage you to continue engaging with us on it. We have been engaging with public, rural agencies, First Nations, board members, and committee members as well on refining that draft. The most recent draft available online is the October 2022 draft, which is published on the ACRD zoning bylaw review webpage that you heard earlier. And I will further highlight that on February 22nd of this month, the board endorsed the zoning bylaw review project anticipated timeline for the completion of this project, which is also included on the zoning bylaw review webpage. The report provides an update on the project and a timeline for the consideration of the amendment of the OCP amendment bylaws, as well as the consideration of the updated zoning bylaw by the board the first time in May 2023. Following this, I will further highlight that a public hearing for the updated zoning bylaw is anticipated for June 2023, which will again provide an additional opportunity for public input on zoning related items. So I wanted to get that off initially, and now back on the bylaw that we have at hand, bylaw P1444. was given first reading by the board in April 2022. The memorandum that was considered by the board during that meeting and a copy of the bylaw with first reading are available online on the ACRD website if you're connecting remotely, and hard copies are available for those in person. I see many of you have them already, but we do have additional hard copies at the back. The bylaw itself provides a line-by-line list of the amendments within bylaw P1444, a consolidated version of the OCP text incorporating the proposed amendments, and the updated land use designation and development permit area maps are also available online on the website and in person here in Porter if you're interested. Quickly highlighting the amendments that are included within the bylaw, within bylaw P1444. One of the things we've worked towards is standardizing policy wording across all 6 of the OCPs we have in the regional district where appropriate. The specific policy wording and minimum lot sizes in the updated zoning bylaw that will apply to the entire ACRD must comply with those policies in our 6 OCPs. So we've worked to standardize and align those, I guess, where we can. We further updated the Local Government Act references throughout the OCP as that act was comprehensively updated following the adoption of that OCP. We've updated the Agricultural Land Commission references that intend to better align with the provincial regulations reflected in the draft zoning bylaw that would allow for new opportunities that we didn't have the ability to respond to before, such as secondary residences in the ALR, agritourism and agritourism accommodation uses, as well as gathering for an event in the ALR as well. So those those ALC references are updated throughout this bylaw. We've included a statement in the OCP about the consideration of housing needs reports. The ACRD did receive a housing needs report for Beaver Creek in 2021. We've revised wording in the definitions section of the bylaw to, again, align with the updated definitions we have in the zoning bylaw. Within this OCP, you'll find the accessory dwelling unit, the flood construction level, home industry, home occupation, and the manufactured, mobile, and modular home definitions being updated. We've revised the wording in the riparian areas protection development permit area to align with the zoning bylaw, again, by measuring the stream setback or the stream riparian area from the natural boundary of a watercourse instead of the high water mark. We've revised the flood construction level guidelines, again, in the development permit areas to align with the zoning bylaw where we can. And then finally, we've updated the maps. So map 2 land use designations and map 3 development permit areas. We've updated those maps utilizing our new GIS mapping database and have introduced a new map format that it intends to be more readable, and the labels have been improved. We do have a large copy of both maps on the map wall and smaller copies available for you if you'd like that, and again linked on the website. And I think I'll pass it over to Amy to just speak to our agency referral responses we received and how we got to this point. So thank you.
Thanks, Alex. So I will take a few minutes, as Alex mentioned, to highlight the referral responses received, and those were received from a number of agencies and First Nations. So a copy of the responses received, as well as a summary table of these responses, are available for the public review on the ACRD website. I can see a number of you have copies of the document here. It's also available at the back of the boardroom. And this summary will form part of the public hearing report, which will be considered by the board. And so there were 23 agency and First Nations responses that we received in total. And agency responses received either noted they were either in support of the bylaw, subject to the reasons outlined in the responses, that their interests were unaffected, or that they had no concerns, comments, or objections. So some of the comments received from referral agencies relating specifically to the Beaver Creek OCP Amendment bylaw generally provided comments about all 4 of the Alberni Valley OCPs together. And so example of that is comments from the Agricultural Land Commission, or the ALC, as well as the Ministry of Agriculture, were largely around ensuring consistency between the bylaw amendments and then the purposes of the provincial agriculture regulations, as well as any decisions by the ALC. So again, a consistency thing around the wording. Staff are also continuing to engage with referral agencies and First Nations where questions have been raised, which then, can be addressed as part of this updated zoning bylaw or as part of these longer term comprehensive updates to the official community plans. The referral request that was sent out indicated that if no response was received by the referral deadline, then it would be assumed that the agency or First Nations interest in the amendment bylaw were unaffected. And so no communication was received from 16 agencies and First Nations who were sent the referral. In terms of public correspondence, there was no public correspondence received ahead of the public hearing relating to the Beaver Creek OCP amendment bylaw. And then for advertising, public consultation advertising, the notice that I read out earlier for this public hearing was advertised in 2 consecutive issues of the Alberta Valley News. So once on February 15th and once on February 22nd, 2023. And this advertisement is a requirement of the Local Government Act as well as the ACRD Development Procedures Bylaw. And this includes statements that public hearings are governed by the Act and that public notice shall be issued in accordance with the requirements of the Act. So unlike when there's things like a rezoning or an OCP amendment application for one specific property, since this amendment bylaw impacts 10 or more parcels owned by 10 or more persons, there's no statutory requirement to mail out that notice to individual property within the community. And as an opportunity to provide supplementary notice for the public hearing dates associated with these OCP amendment bylaws, the board directed staff to place 1 or more sandwich boards in the community. So 2 sandwich boards were placed in the Beaver Creek community on February 15th. And they also provided that supplementary notice that we talked about. And then just a couple more notes here. Over the course of the zoning bylaw review project, as Alex mentioned, staff have undertaken a number of online in-person engagement activities, a variety of advertising to gain input on that draft zoning bylaw, as well as the associated amendments, which we're talking about tonight, to the electoral area OCPs at various stages. And again, just a reminder that the zoning bylaw remains in draft form. Most recent versions online there as of October. And please do contact planning staff if you have any questions or comments around the zoning bylaw in draft form. And I think I'll probably leave it at that for now.
Thank you. Okay, we will now hear representations from members of the public. Please wait until you've been recognized by me. Unmute your microphone if participating by Zoom. Raise your hand if seated around the boardroom table or come to the podium. Please state your name and address before beginning. We will hear everyone wishing to speak for the first time before allowing second comments. Would anyone like to speak or have any questions? Yes.
Oh, my name is Shannon Borgstead, 6780 Beaver Creek Road. It's my property. Leave me alone. I don't tell you guys what to do on your property. Why should you tell us? I could see if it was a mess or a health issue. Yes, by all means. But if you keep your property clean and neat, I keep to myself, you keep to yourself. That's all I got to say about that.
Thank you. Yes.
Kerry Young, 6574 Walker Road. I got a question on policy 3.2.7. Only permit home industry use in accordance with all the following in the parcel. Can you clarify more on that? Like, what does this mean for the home industry uses that are already up Beaver Creek? Because there's multiple more than what you've stated down here, right? There's small engine repair, there's motorcycle repair, there's automotive repair, there's way more stuff going on out there than what you kind of just listed. So what does it mean for us?
I hear you. Yeah. So that's a great question. I'd be happy to answer it. That's okay. The home industry uses are something that aren't currently permitted in the zoning bylaw. So we have a mechanism that allows for home occupations, which are smaller businesses within a home, like hairdresser, doctor's office, that sort of thing. But we don't have anything that allows for home-based businesses to operate from a shop or outside or anything that involves, a light industrial or manufacturing use. So when we went through the updates on developing the OCPs in 2012 and 2013, we introduced the idea of home industry, which would support, smaller scale manufacturing, smaller scale home industry uses on that 5-acre minimum lot size, and with additional setbacks. So what we've done here is we've introduced in the updated zoning law, we've introduced guidelines in there for that, which includes setbacks and screening and all that. And that's a new opportunity that we didn't allow before, and that came directly out of these OCP updates. That we're trying to respond to what we recognize is a need within the community.
Thank you, Carrie. Did you want to carry on the conversation?
Yes, I did. Okay, so right in your words that you're just saying, they're 5 acre. Now, the properties that are out there that have got this home business are not 5 acres. So what does that mean for them?
So that's the minimum threshold we have in the OCPs is a 2 hectare, 5 acre minimum lot size.
Who decided 5 acres?
The board did at the time through community consultation.
Oh, I'd like to see that change.
Well, we had the opportunity to do that as part of a comprehensive OCP update. That's not something that the board has provided us direction on changing here. We're actually introducing this into the zoning bylaw as an additional opportunity that people didn't have before. If we want to have a community discussion on allowing it on smaller than 5 acres, I think we need to do that, and
Yes,
we can have a fulsome discussion as part of the comprehensive updates.
Did anybody from the ACRD planning committee go visit any of these businesses out there?
Yeah, we're definitely aware of.
But
a
did
lot of businesses out there.
anybody go out and visit these existing businesses out there?
Absolutely, yes.
You did?
Yeah.
You visited?
Okay, so
Did Colin get visited? Did the small engine repair guy get visited? Like, I know these guys, nobody got visited.
So as Alex mentioned before, we had, when the OCP was updated in 2013, and I know a number of you attended the open houses and the public hearings we had at that time. This was something that wasn't permitted in the ACRD zoning bylaw, and what currently isn't permitted in the ACRD zoning bylaw. It was something that was new. There was recognition that there is a lot of businesses within all of the regional district that are operating outside of the parameters set out in the zoning bylaw. And this was one of the ways to allow for more home industry uses. So that's the reason that it's in here. So this isn't intended to be a restriction. This is intended to be allowed for more uses that are currently permitted. There's also some provisions in the, this is sort of going outside of the OCP, but it ties into the home occupation and home industry uses, where home occupation currently, the way it's structured in the zoning bylaw, the way it was written in 1973, is that it can only take place in a home, and there is some provision in the draft zoning bylaw to allow home occupation uses, which are separate from home industry, in accessory buildings. So if people can do some of those uses, or under if the new zoning bylaw is adopted, would be allowed to do to have an expanded use around home occupation as well.
Carrie?
Okay, Mike, you said a whole lot of things there, but absolutely said nothing that we understand. Like, what is going on? Like,
Sure. So I guess maybe the simplest one. So there's any industrial use on properties that are zoned residential that didn't exist before 1973, if they're operating outside the bounds of the zoning bylaw right now. And that would be the simplest way to explain it. So there are some properties that are zoned residential, and if there was a commercial or industrial use that was taking place and has continued to take place from like 1972 till now, those would be legal non-conforming. So
okay, that's fine for us because we've been there since 1969.
yeah,
But there's other people out there that make a living on, like the small engine repair guy, the motorcycle shop.
so that's the intent of what's in this OCP, and it's been in there since 2013. And also the intent of the new zone bylaw, the way it's in draft, is to allow more of those uses.
Yeah, but he said 5 acres.
That's what home industry says right now.
Okay, but how do you change that to a smaller scale?
So that would be something that could be through the OCP, changed and an amendment be made to the OCP. The other way to do it would be for individual property owners to rezone their property to allow for that commercial or industrial use.
So rezoning is a long process and not necessarily always guaranteed. Is it not?
Correct. It is. It's not a guarantee. It's the right.
So you have people out there that have the smaller properties that already have an established thing that don't fall into your 1973 criteria. And so you're going to go to them and tell them that they're shut down and done.
So, and I think I'll just quickly explain the bylaw enforcement policy that we were talking about before, and then I'll let Susan go to the next step. So we have always operated on a complaint basis. So if the HRD gets a complaint regarding a bylaw enforcement, we will do an investigation and work through, contact the property owner, ask them, determine if there's an infraction there, and then look for remedies if that's an opportunity, if that's something that can happen. So the enforcement, the tickets, the going through legal enforcement only happens, if the infraction continues and the property owner, isn't looking for ways to resolve the issue. And one of the ways to resolve it is for people to make application to rezone or for temporary use permits.
Yeah, okay. Example, my neighbor that had an automotive mechanic business there, or not automotive, but a mechanical business. He was shut down by the ACRD and wound up moving. Property got sold, and now we have a brand new deck and fence assembly plant, which I hear more than the people that were there before with the mechanical business. But that's allowed. Yeah.
So it sounds like you're talking about some property specifics related to enforcement, and I think that's a conversation that's better had with the enforcement officer rather than in a public.
I know, but that's what I'm trying to get at here. All of a sudden, like, you guys go and ACRD attack somebody, and next thing you know, it's okay for this other person, which nobody in that area was complaining about the particular thing. It was just I'm happy to share our enforcement policy with you. It's I know, but
clearly laid out.
What I'm getting at, Mike, is we're all scared. We're scared out there. Like, Beaver Creek has been Beaver Creek for as long as I've been alive. You grew up out there, you know what it was like, and it's still the same. And now you guys are trying to bring this new policy in that goes against every grain of thought of people that live out there, except for the people that are moving out there from some unknown new city that come in.
But they don't like to move back where they came from.
Yeah, we got people that moved in a couple doors down, and she said, I moved here from the big city, but I want to change this and I want to change that and I want to change this to the big city type stuff. And it sounds like your little plan here is trying to make Beaver Creek go away as the rural community that we like. And that's why we live out there, is something more city-based.
And I think we hear what you're saying. The only thing I want to say is that the purpose of this OCP is to sort of goes hand in hand with the new zoning bylaw, and in not all of the instances, but most of the instances, and as they apply to Beaver Creek, especially around home occupation and home industry, it's more permissive than what has been in place since 1973.
Okay, also on that different aspect, same thing though, bed and breakfasts. So you're allowed to have 3 or more bed and breakfasts on your property. Short-term rentals.
So bed and breakfasts have always been permitted.
Okay, but short-term rentals.
Short-term rentals can be through a temporary use permit. We have a policy, and we have issued a number of temporary use permits for short-term vacation rentals.
Yeah, but that's okay.
If they're approved.
Other things. Okay, I'm done for now. Tim, your turn.
Thank you. Thanks. Tim?
Tim Killow, 6175 Georgia Road. A few things here. It's hard to keep up on everything that is being changed and not having enough information on what. There's a lot of businesses in Beaver Creek, lots of properties in Beaver Creek that have been existing since 1969 or previous, or a long previous. Some things that there wasn't bylaws for that were allowed to happen and have happened. What are these? If we get a complaint and there isn't a category for these people to fall into, whether it be a home business or a mechanic shop or whatever, are they going to be forced out of their livelihood or their residence because they did something that nobody complained about for 30 years? And somebody moves in from a big city and says, well, I don't like this. And the bylaw says, well, we can't have this. So does this person that's been there, honest, law-abiding, tax-paying citizen of the Alberta Regional District for 35 years, now does he lose his livelihood, his house, his property, because he cannot keep going? Because the bylaw that, there was never a bylaw that would allow him to do that in place, but nobody stopped him from doing it for 30 years. How are those people affected by all this new bylaw stuff? And I don't understand how you think that a group of bylaws for the whole one bylaw for the whole ACRD is going to fit Banfield, Tofino, Beaver Creek, Spoke Lake, Port Alberni. And I'm not sure if our First Nations reservations are included in the bylaws or not. I haven't been able to look that deep recently. So, and again, where do these people fit into? Like myself, I run a small business on my property. I've only got 1.18 acres. Now I'm not doing anything at home other than having a truck parked there with a couple ladders on, but I'm still operating a business on my property. And that's my home residence.
Yeah. So I mean, you've raised some good points there for sure, and we do have the board has an enforcement policy that deals with complaint basis, right? That's what we've talked about. So in theory, if somebody has been operating a non-conforming business since the 80s or the late 70s or something like that, that does not fit within the permitted uses in that zone, the board receives a complaint, or the ACRD receives a complaint about it. Enforcement staff will investigate that complaint, and that may result in conversations about ceasing that use on the property. But I will highlight that the board ultimately sets the direction for what we do on bylaw enforcement, and the practice of the bylaw enforcement officers is to follow that policy that we have in place. So if there's any further direction from the board, we can adjust to that. But what we've done as part of this project, as Mike mentioned, and as we've highlighted, the home industry is a new use that we are allowing. It's more permissive now than it has ever been. And then we've expanded home occupations as well to allow businesses to operate in an accessory building or a shop or within an ADU on the property. And so that's what we've updated the definitions as part of this OCP amendment bylaw, but we've introduced those into the new draft zoning bylaw, and encourage everybody to have a look at that and give us some feedback on what what you might see in home industry and home occupations in the zoning bylaw that we could be more permissive on, because we do have, as we mentioned, we have some time to amend that and bring that forward to the board later in spring. And then I will just to address your last comment about the one zoning bylaw for the entire area. We have had that since 1973. That's not a new idea that we're introducing. We've had one zoning bylaw that has applied to the entire region, and we can differentiate areas by zone. So certain areas like Banfield have some unique zones that are only located in Banfield, the Long Beach area as well. We really regulate uses by those residential and those rural zones and the individual permitted uses and densities that are allowed in each of those zones. And that's essentially the same format that we've been doing it since the beginning of the zone bylaw here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the lady on the end there?
My name is Jackie Busby. I'm at 7700 Mackenzie Road. Our property is on the Stamp River, and we have a riparian zone. It's about half a mile. It's about 100 feet deep at best. There's no logging, there's no roads, nothing except paths where people swim and so on, because, excuse me, there is a trailer court on our property, mobile home court as well. We are always concerned about the idea of a trail that will go through our property. It doesn't go, ours goes into a crown land below us, and we have the only access by land to this property. But it doesn't, it goes to the confluence. That's where it ends. And so there is a gazetted road below our place between the Crown land and our property. And about 40 years ago, they did put or survey the center line for this road. And this would be access to that property. But there's no way that we can have access through our property to there, except just people coming and asking for permission and going down and walking down there. There's no road. There's no way to drive. But this is always a concern. I see you have a section here on riparian zones, and I wondered if you could speak to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd be happy to speak to that, Jackie. Thank you for raising that. So what we've done with the development permit areas, which is what that riparian zone means, is an area that's a buffer adjacent to a natural water course that would limit the ability to alter the land or clear the land or build within that area without first seeking a development permit application and engaging a registered professional biologist to review those plans. So the development permit areas we have along the Somass and the Stamp River are 30 meters from the natural boundary, about 100 feet. And the riparian areas we have from the minor water courses that aren't, it's the Lucre Creek and the Bear Creek and Beaver Creek. The riparian area is 15 meters or 50 feet from those areas. So, that is intended to limit the development of private properties within those areas that may have an impact on environmentally sensitive areas. It's not intending to allow for future trail construction or any public use of those lands. If you own the land and you're the private landowner, then you control who can use the land and who can be there. So it won't have an impact on fishermen accessing the river through your property, because I know that's a concern. That's not what that's intended for. Hopefully that answers your question. Thank you.
Yes, would you like to speak?
Brett Brenneman, 6780 Beaver Creek Road. Two things. One, about the amount of trailers on the property below 5 acres, or is it 2 acres? I think it's 2. Right now it's the limit to 4, if I understand.
So you're the parking of trailers or living in the trailer. So the parking of trailers right now, and these are regulated in the zoning bylaw, not in the OCP amendment bylaw that we're dealing with. But right now, it's in the residential zones. It's 1 trailer, 1 RV, and 1 boat, and it does not apply to the agricultural zones. And what we've proposed to update the zoning bylaw to be is in the R zones. So those are the properties on R1, R2, and R3. the multifamily zones as well, that you would be allowed any combination of 4 of the boats, trailers, and RVs, and that would be the parking and the storage of personal RVs, not for a commercial use. If you're in one of the rural zones, which is the RU1, RU2, RU3, and resource, essentially the current agricultural zones that fit that 2 acre or larger character, there would be no limit on the number of those things.
With regards to the R zones, can we make it 6 instead of 4?
Yeah, I mean, that's valid input for sure, and that's something we could look at as part of this bylaw. And I would encourage you to have a look at that zoning bylaw online and send us an email or get a hold of me or Amy or Mike, separate from this process, and let us know that we do have the ability to look at changes like that.
And one other thing, when they were talking about businesses and stuff, is there any way to establish a grandfathering of certain businesses who have not had a complaint or had any business from bylaw officers for 10, 15 years? So
The only way to establish a grandfather that is if they were established prior to the adoption of the current zoning bylaw, which is that 1973. Yeah, I mean, that is as I mentioned before, the board sets policy on how we respond to complaints and how we deal with bylaw enforcement. So, there could be prioritization that we look at, or there could be different levels of enforcement, whether it's a letter and a conversation, or a fine, or a ticket that we have the ability to issue bylaw notices for contraventions of the zoning bylaw. So we have a broad spectrum of things we can do, and it's always easier, and it's always more effective for everybody if there's cooperation on both sides. So that's the way we like to see things. Is if there's small changes that can be made, or if there's things we can do by dialogue, then that's step one, obviously.
So if I could, Susan, with respect to bylaw enforcement, it is up to the ACRD board of directors to enforce or not enforce. So you were asking, so legally under the legislation that sets zoning, when people talk about grandfathering, that has like some very specific legal terms. Now this is a little bit outside the OCP, but I think it's important for people, for everybody's had a few questions around this. So the legislation sets out if something's existed prior, and there's some really specific criteria, but if something existed prior to the zoning bylaw, it's legal non-conforming, right? And it's continued on. What you were talking about is other ones. So the board can choose to enforce or not enforce on instances, and in general. So something that's been going on for a long time, could be looked at differently than something that started up 6 weeks ago, right? But again, that as staff, we will enforce the bylaws, based on clear policy and direction that we've been provided. Through our enforcement process, there is always a reporting to the board. If it's not resolved, and the board, in instances, can choose not to enforce zoning bylaw.
Just one quick thing on all you're saying about the zoning bylaw, and I understand that's the job and that's the way it's set up. The problem is when something becomes out of flavor in the society. Now that place that's been run, established, and been part of the community, part of the tax base, now becomes very vulnerable because they're no longer something that's considered acceptable. That's the only thing that really makes it hard on individuals who own those businesses.
No, and we understand that, and that was the idea of introducing the home industry uses at 5 acres. There's certainly opportunities. We are going to be reviewing the entire community plan, doing a comprehensive review, and want to talk to the community. I would encourage everybody to come out and participate in that on looking at other options, like the economy of the world's changed since 1973. I mean, it's been 50 years, and there is, there is, I think the need for businesses to operate, on their home, in a way that wasn't the same or needed in 1973. So those are important.
Thank you. Jim? Or I'm sorry, did you want to speak before Jim? Okay.
Okay. Tim Gilligan. When it comes to this 5-acre parcel to have a business on, eliminate the 5 acres, make everybody happy. Just eliminate the 5-acre line. If you've got a property in Beaver Creek, you're not bothering your neighbors. Why do we have to have a 5 acres number on a piece of property? There's people that have a third of an acre that can build burl clocks and carvings in their backyard, be an artist, and sell that stuff at Harbor Key. They're doing stuff at home. They're using power tools at home as a business. They're not bothering anybody, but they're on a third of an acre. And there's lots of lots in Beaver Creek that are a third of an acre or smaller. You don't need a 5-acre parcel. Now, if you're going to repair logging trucks in your driveway, well, then you need 5 acres. But if you're doing small industrial or stuff like that, you don't need 5 acres. My property is 593 feet deep. That's several logging trucks deep. If I want to change axles and do stuff like that, I've got enough depth and you wouldn't see it from the street. But I've only got 1.25 acres, 1.18. So as for your property sizes, I'd like to make a recommendation to the board or to whoever needs to hear it, that we take that 5-acre item out of that bylaw and just leave it. If you've got a property that is rural, that is already operating as a business, we just leave it at that. We don't need to have a 5-acre thing on that bylaw. Depending on the business. But I think for most businesses, if you can do it on 5 acres, you can do it on 3, probably. So that or less. But like I say, I know on my property isn't as wide and broad as most properties in Beaver Creek, but there's lots of stuff that can be done on it. And since COVID, we've got a lot of people moving to the rural areas, working from home on their computers that aren't used to the country lifestyle and the country, like they moved here, oh, it's quiet. Well, it's quiet because everything's shut down. Nobody's doing it. This isn't normal. So as soon as somebody starts to, oh, we can get back to going now, they make a little bit of noise and then they get complaints. And that is another thing about the complaints. I'd like to see them no longer being anonymous complaint. That's another story. We'll get to that later on. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Jerry?
I'd like to support what Tim just said too, but get rid of the acreage. They said, I know all the businesses that are running out the creek out there, and not one of them conforms to that 5 acres right now. And they've all been running out there for a lot of years. And, well, yeah, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to push everybody out there. Like 5 acres is just unheard of. Unless you get out to Shannon's farm, that type of thing. But so I'd like to support that. And I don't know who we got to direct this stuff to get it changed. Because this is not a change area. This is a listening and talking area.
Just wondering, can we provide a business card or some contact information to everyone before they leave?
We could certainly do that. And I mean, this meeting will be, the minutes of this meeting and the report will be considered by the board. So the electoral area directors who vote on the zoning bylaw and the OCP amendment bylaws as well will receive the report. So they'll hear these comments. Certainly encourage you to reach out about the zoning bylaw specifically as well, because I think that's the best way to do that. And we can give you the contact information as well. I do want to highlight, we've got a number of comments online, actually, from Mike Sparrow that relate to shipping containers, and I'd like to read them out and answer them if I could. So we question on the issue of shipping containers, can you confirm that the setbacks for containers on a lot are the same as for for structures that would be allowed on the same land. So shipping containers are something that would fall within the definition of a temporary building. In the zoning bylaw, what we propose to do, we've removed any reference to a building permit for a temporary building or a shipping container, and we intend to regulate them through setbacks. So it would the placement of a shipping container would need to meet the same setbacks you would have if you were to build a shed or a building. So they would have the same setbacks in that respect. The second question from Mike Sparrow is, are shipping containers going to be allowed to be stacked in the ACRD as they are designed to be stacked? We do have a limit in the zoning bylaw right now that they are not allowed to be stacked. They do have to meet the building height requirements for an accessory building, but they would not be permitted to be stacked. Again, if there's if there's thoughts about that and some ideas that we should be allowing that, then we encourage people to reach out directly to us about the zoning bylaw, and that's something we could update if needed. The third question from Mike Sparrow: are you going to make shipping containers ventilated depending on contents to avoid potential explosive situations? That's not included within the zoning bylaw. If we need to add a comment in there, and that would likely be considered by our fire services coordinators and our fire chiefs as well. We'll get some feedback on them through the agency referral process on the zoning bylaw, and if it's appropriate to be adding a statement in there that there's hazardous materials being stored, that ventilation is required, then we're happy to do that. The fourth question from Mike Sparrow: is it correct the regional district does consider shipping containers as a structural component and therefore cannot be used as walls for carports? So what we have said, the expectation that a temporary building or a shipping container that is simply placed on the property, whether it's on a gravel pad or a concrete pad or on the ground, will not require a building permit, and would have to meet those. The placement of it would have to meet those setbacks, but it would not be requiring a building permit. Where that structure has been altered or added onto or modified to be used for human occupation, for example, or to be used as a foundation for roof trusses, then I expect that the building inspectors will likely be requiring a building permit for those types of uses. So if shipping containers are used as walls to hold up a roof that would become a carport, we would refer that to the building inspectors, who ultimately make the call on whether you need a building permit. And then the fifth and final question we have online here from Mike Sparrow: there are a number of people that raise exotic birds, which may be considered game birds. What is your position on peacocks, and where can they be raised within the regional district? The peacocks are included within the keeping of animals section of the zoning bylaw, again, that deals with roosters. So that section deals with roosters, peacocks, and I think that's it. And they're limited to a 2 acre or a 0.8 hectare minimum lot size in those zones. So thank you, Mike, for that. If you had any additional questions, let us know, or if you'd like to unmute yourself, you're ask a question, you're happy to do so, but I'll pass it back to Director Roth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Were there any other people that?
Right, me again. Policy 3.2.7. Can you guys do a little clarification on the wording on this here? About fully sustainable landscape 10-meter screened and buffered area between home and industry uses and adjacent properties.
Yeah, so that intends to require a setback area from between where the home industry use is located and the neighboring properties. We do have more specific guidelines in the draft zoning bylaw as well that it talks about additional setbacks if the use is outside, or smaller setbacks if the use is based within a shop.
And so there again, you're trying to impose some city regulations in the country by making somebody beautify the area in respect to their neighbors type thing here.
It's not about beautifying the area as it is as much about mitigating nuisance issues. So that
About mitigating what, sorry?
nuisance issues,
Nuisance
potential
issues.
nuisance issues. So,
There again.
and
Now
and again,
you're
it's
protecting your neighbors,
that's
or you're
the,
after your neighbors, and you're just attacking us out here. That's
Okay,
that's
these
another
are-
attack.
but again, this policy has been in the OCP since 2013 when this
When we
when
come and
this
spoke
was
about
adopted.
it back then too.
And what we've done to align the draft zoning bylaw with the OCP is we've introduced these new regulations, which are more permissive in the draft zoning bylaw now than what the current zoning bylaw allows.
Okay, but who actually comes up with these ideas? Like this stuff here is just nobody from the Beaver Creek area obviously got to put input into this stuff.
Home industry was discussed at length at the time, and we
Yeah.
Input into this stuff, because this is bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, the discussion around home industry began in 2010 when we did some background work in the Alberni Valley, and then we updated the 4 Alberni Valley OCPs between 2012 and 2014, and we had a lot of conversations at the time. You know, if this doesn't fit within the needs of the community now, then we need to have a community conversation about that, and we want to get to that point where we can update our OCPs and have the comprehensive updates.
But well, it's just that everything I've read in here, like go through it. I just can't believe that you guys actually got input from people that live out there. I just can't believe it. Well, I know that's just what I mean. Like it's
Susan, Director Roth, if I can. So when we do our official community plans, we do meet with the community, and we also have a Beaver Creek Advisory Planning Commission that goes through all of the any of the land use applications we have, and as well as any of the official community plan reviews. Work like this. They're also involved in this. So that's something else. And anybody's interested in what the Advisory Planning Commission is, they certainly want to contact me, and we can provide some information on that. I think each of our advisory planning commissions have allowed with the structure set up, you have up to 11 people, and there certainly isn't 11 people on Beaver Creek's Advisory Planning Commission. So.
Thank you.
Are you guys going to have another open house out Beaver Creek with this proposed plan so people can actually come and review it and talk to this planning committee and stuff like that?
So certainly when we go through, so for this, like what we're doing today, this is the public hearing that will go to the board. When we review the official community plan, we would absolutely be doing that.
Okay, is that before or after all these decisions are made and finalized?
So as far as ultimately, it's up to the board if they proceed with the changes that are here. But the things you've been bringing up have been in place since 2013, the majority of them. So there would also, because we've talked a lot about the zoning bylaw, the draft zoning bylaw, there would be a public hearing for that as well before it goes forward.
Do we have a date for that, Mike?
No, we don't have that date for the zoning bylaw public hearing. No, it's still in draft. People certainly provide their comments to planning staff. There's the information on the website. We can provide you with contact information. If you don't have it, you can provide that info.
So basically what you're saying is 11 people make the decision for 300 and some odd people or more that live out there.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
That's pretty much what you said.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Gary, I'm happy to provide the information and sort of answer the questions. But we did, when this was developed, I remember talking to, we had an open house at Beaver Creek Hall. Again, don't know if all of you are there, but I know a number of you were there. It was advertised, through this process. We've had open houses through COVID. We had online opportunities for people to participate. All of that information's available. This is sort of the step required after first reading for this.
Well, as far as your online stuff, I don't know if you remember how many people live out Beaver Creek, but not all of them are computer savvy.
That's right. And that's why we've had, in-person open houses as well. So it's been a combination of both.
So are you guys gonna have another one? That's what's the main question. And you said that might be a date.
Yeah, there just hasn't been a date set yet, but I can give you my business card too, or me. And,
Mhm.
like sending me an email is really good too.
Yeah, and like I said, and is this after it's all done?
No,
Or still in the process?
yeah, it's still in the process. Isn't that what you said, Mike?
I wasn't clear what Terry was asking. So if it's respect to this OCP, the changes that we're dealing with today, this would go to the board. If the board proceeds with second and third reading, then it would go for adoption. What I'm saying is, and probably next year, we'd be reviewing the entire Beaver Creek official community plan, and we'd be going out, meeting with, getting feedback, looking for the comments that we've had today from everybody.
With that, Mike, just for clarification, for the bylaw zoning, or sorry, for the zoning bylaw, what about that? There'll be public meetings for that?
So for the zoning bylaw, there would be a public hearing scheduled for that, yes.
And that's where some of the concerns lie? Is that what you see?
I think a combination of both, but yes, there's been some discussions around around the zoning bylaw. And as we keep mentioning, people can provide their input to us, like it's still in draft form, there's still opportunities to make changes.
Tim?
Yes, Tim again. What is the best way for you to receive a recommendation to the board on our displeasure on a zoning suggestion such as this one that we've been discussing lately? Like, what's going to get the most attention? What's going to get people sitting in their seats looking at, oh, well, we better not do this. That's how I want to present it to you. Because otherwise it'll get slipped into the pile, pushed into the cover. We'll get to the meeting and then we won't get a chance to discuss it and it'll get pushed down through our throats. And like I say, I want to know what's the best way to put it in your hands that it'll take it to the board that's looking at it and say, oh, well, we can't do this. We better fix this. And there's been things that have been addressed already that was fixed by the board, or their suggestions have been fixed in here. I like that. But what's the best platform to get the information to you, what we want to see on that bylaw?
I mean, there's a number of ways to do that. You can either write us a letter, hand deliver it here to us, and address that to the board if you'd like to speak to the board directly, or to staff. You can send an email to planning@acrd.bc.ca. We talked about it, and that's if you have any specific feedback on policy such and such should be changed, or this limit should be increased, or whatever you would like, or come to the office, come chat with myself or Amy or Mike or really anybody in the planning department. We'd be happy to take the comments verbally from you as well. But I think the most weight are written. So either written in a letter or written in an email would be helpful for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more comments or comments on the screen? But I can hear what you're saying. Is everyone good?
There are no additional comments online, but we do have Mike Sparrow and Harold Carlson there. If you'd like to unmute yourselves and ask a question, you can certainly do so. Otherwise, put something in the chat or the Q&A like you've done. Thank you.
Okay, so we're at the part where please be advised that members of the board cannot receive new information related to this bylaw between the end of this hearing and making a final decision on the bylaw. If any board member does so, the hearing could be invalidated and would have to be held again. With that in mind, does anyone have any final comments? Sure. And this is to do with the OCP, okay? Please be advised that members of the Board of Directors cannot receive new information related to this bylaw between the end of this hearing and making a final decision on the bylaw. If any board member does so, the hearing could be invalidated and would have to be held again. With that in mind, does anyone have any final comments? Okay, Tim?
So if we don't, is there a board member here tonight? Okay, so if you, by the end of this meeting, you have to know our displeasure at that, whatever number that was, your business one.
327.
327, okay? If you don't hear of it tonight, it no longer counts, is what you're saying by reading that, what you just read?
No, it just means that, because this meeting is recorded,
Yes,
so everything has been taken in.
okay.
It just means that if there's anything else that you haven't said that you need to say, isn't that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. And just to clarify that, if there's comments on the OCP amendment bylaw, now's the time to do it. The comments we've talked about that would be in the zoning bylaw, like the limits on home industry, the lot size that it would be permitted on, the parking of RVs, we talked about keeping of animals and all that sort of stuff. Those are specific to the zoning bylaw, and we do have the ability to make changes to that bylaw before we anticipate the board considering it for first reading in May. Just be clear on that.
Okay, one more thing, because I don't know if this is relevant for this, but I would make a recommendation to the board to eliminate all anonymous complaints, bylaw complaints to the impact a property owner in the ACRD. If there's a complaint made that is fines or mental unrest, that the complainant, whoever's doing the complaining, be listed, so that you don't have somebody driving around making complaints just because they can. Right now, as an anonymous complaint, anybody can say anything. You do follow up by complaints. Bylaw enforcement is complaint driven. If it's going to be complaint driven, list who's complaining. Thank you.
Carrie?
Totally agree with what he's saying. Like, you need to be some accountability on the complaints for people that may complain, right? So, yeah. So anyways, I totally agree.
Thank you.
One final thought. My only concern is the flavor of Beaver Creek is changing because a lot of developers are going out there because we're losing a lot of other places to go. And if you are having a lot of complaints, if we find somebody who's complaining has actual association with development or real estate, I'd like to know those guys doing it. Because you can have somebody who wants to do a lot of developing, making a lot of frustration, heartache, and driving people out. And that's not right, and that's not fair. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comments before we proceed? Okay. Should I go back? Yeah, okay, I'll step back. So everyone is happy that they've had their say, and okay. And you can still do it if you want. Okay, so I'm gonna go back a little bit. Please be advised that members of the Board of Directors cannot receive new information related to this bylaw between the end of this hearing and making a final decision on the bylaw. If any board member does so, the hearing could be invalidated and would have to be held again. With that in mind, does anyone have any final comments? And I don't see anyone. There's a screen here. Okay.
No, there's nobody online. We did hear from Mike Sparrow that he was happy that his questions were answered, and we have Mike and Harold online still, but if they would like to unmute, they can do so. But otherwise, you can move on.
Okay. Okay. I call for first time for any further representations on the bylaw. Any comments? I call for a second time for any further representations on the bylaw. I call for a third time for any further representations on the bylaw. Any comments? Okay, hearing no further comments, I declare this hearing terminated.